The city never sleeps. Its streets are alive with restless horns, flashing headlights, and the endless hum of ambition. Among the towering skyscrapers and glittering billboards stood the majestic glass fortress of Victor Dynamics, a name whispered with reverence by dreamers and feared by competitors. And that's where my story begins. I was Ryan Carter, 26 years old, broke, hungry, and desperate to make something of myself. I wasn't just chasing a job. I was chasing a dream. On that hot summer morning, I stood before the massive doors of Victor Dynamics, clutching a worn-out folder and adjusting my cheap tie for the 10th time. My palms were sweating so much that I feared the ink on my resume would smudge before I even stepped inside. Walking through those doors felt like stepping into another world. The air smelled of freshly polished wood and overpriced coffee. Everywhere I looked, people moved with purpose, their suits sharp, their faces confident. Everyone seemed important. Everyone except me. And then, I saw him, Victor King, the man himself, the CEO, the architect of this empire. He walked out of the elevator with the grace of someone who owned not just this building but the entire city around it. His suit looked like it cost more than my yearly rent. His watch glittered faintly under the lobby lights, and his smile, oh, that smile, polished, charming, dangerous. He stopped right in front of me. "Ah," he said, scanning me up and down like he was evaluating a used car. "You must be the new kid, Ryan, right?" I nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Victor smirked and leaned in just slightly. "Let's hope you last longer than the last guy." 3 weeks before he cracked and cried in the bathroom. Laughter erupted from the 2 executives standing behind him. My face burned, but I forced a smile, telling myself it was nothing. First impressions didn't matter. My work would speak for me. I was wrong. The first few months were brutal. I worked harder than I ever thought possible. Days bled into nights, nights into mornings. I became a ghost in that building, surviving on energy drinks, instant noodles, and a fire inside me that refused to die. I handled the toughest clients, built campaigns from scratch, ran analytics that no one else could make sense of. One time, I designed a strategy that landed Victor Dynamics a $2 million client. I spent 72 sleepless hours crafting every detail, perfecting every slide, rehearsing every word. The next morning, I sat in the boardroom, exhausted but proud, expecting a something. Recognition, a nod, maybe even a simple good job. Victor walked in, holding my presentation in his hand. "Gentlemen," he said with a dazzling grin, "this is my strategy, and it's going to revolutionize the campaign." The room erupted into applause. For him, not for me, not even a glance in my direction. I told myself it didn't matter. "Keep your head down, Ryan," I thought. "Work hard. He'll notice eventually." But Victor King never noticed. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Monday morning. The company gathered in the main conference room. 50 employees packed tightly around polished tables, everyone waiting for Victor to speak. I sat quietly at the back, sipping burnt coffee, trying to avoid attention. Suddenly, Victor turned sharply and pointed directly at me. "Ryan," he said loudly, his voice carrying across the room. "Can you explain why last quarter's numbers are down?" My chest tightened. Those weren't even my numbers. That wasn't my department. "Sir, actually, I wasn't." "Excuses," he snapped, cutting me off mid-sentence. "That's what losers give. Remember something, Ryan, you're replaceable." Laughter rippled across the room like a wave, each chuckle slicing deeper than the last. I sat there frozen, forcing my face into something resembling composure while my insides collapsed. That word, replaceable, burned into my mind like acid. That night, I stayed late in the office, long after everyone had left. The building was quiet, the city lights stretching endlessly outside my window. I sat there, staring at my reflection in the glass, questioning everything. Was this really my life? Was this what I'd worked for? To break myself apart piece by piece, just so someone else could wear the crown. Something inside me shifted that night. A whisper at first, then a roar. "You're meant for more than this." By Friday, I had made my decision. I walked into Victor's office, sunlight streaming through the blinds, the tension in the air so heavy I could feel it pressing against my skin. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady. "I quit," I said simply. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, his smirk widening into a grin that dripped with mockery. "You? Quit?" he said, chuckling. "Where are you going to go, Ryan? Who's going to hire you? Without me, you're nothing." I clenched my fists at my sides, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of an answer. I turned and walked out. That was the last day I worked for Victor Dynamics. But as the elevator doors closed behind me, one thought burned hotter than everything else. I wasn't nothing. And one day, Victor King was going to learn that the hard way. That day was the start of my empire. The day I left Victor Dynamics, the city looked different. The streets were still loud, the skyscrapers still kissed the clouds, and the cars still rushed past like they had somewhere important to be. But for the first time in years, I didn't. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching a small cardboard box. My entire career condensed into a few folders, a mug with a broken handle, and a dying plant I couldn't bring myself to leave behind. People around me didn't care. They never do. That's the thing about cities like this. They swallow your victories and your failures the same way. You're just another name, another face, another nobody. I walked aimlessly that afternoon, my thoughts louder than the traffic. What now, Ryan? What do you have left? For the first week, I told myself it was fine. I'd land on my feet. I had savings. I had skills. I had time. By the second week, I started lying to myself. By the third, reality caught up. The bills didn't stop coming just because my job did. My landlord didn't care about my situation. The little money I had vanished into rent, groceries, and loan payments, leaving me staring at empty bank statements late at night. I started cutting corners. Cheap instant noodles instead of proper meals, skipping bus rides to walk miles, selling my old electronics piece by piece. But no matter how hard I tried, it wasn't enough. I sent out hundreds of applications. I tailored my resume, polished my portfolio, crafted cover letters that bled with desperation. Weeks passed. Silence. Then finally, an interview. It was for a small marketing firm. Not glamorous, not prestigious, but it was something. I walked into that office with hope buzzing in my chest. The manager, a man younger than me, scanned my resume and smiled faintly. "Victor Dynamics," he said, tapping the page. "Impressive. So why'd you leave?" I hesitated, unsure how to answer. Before I could speak, he leaned back and shrugged. "Well, to be honest, Ryan, if Victor King let you go, that's enough for me." And just like that, the interview was over. Victor hadn't just taken my job, he'd poisoned my name. My entire identity was tethered to him, and now that tether was strangling me. Months passed. My apartment grew quieter, emptier, colder. I stopped answering calls from friends, ignored messages from family. Every time I heard Victor Dynamics mentioned online, my stomach twisted like a knife digging deeper. One night, I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment, surrounded by overdue bills, my laptop glowing faintly in the darkness. Outside, sirens screamed in the distance while rain hammered against the windows. I stared at my reflection in the black mirror of the TV screen. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same hoodie I'd slept in for 3 nights. I didn't recognize myself anymore. That was the night I almost gave up. Almost. But as I sat there, drowning in silence, my phone buzzed. It was a news notification. Victor Dynamics announces record-breaking profits after revolutionary marketing strategy. My strategy, my work, my blood. And there he was, Victor King, smiling for the cameras, holding my ideas like trophies, bathed in applause that should have been mine. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I didn't move. I just sat there watching interviews, news clips, stock prices soaring. All because of me, but never for me. That's when something inside me snapped. At first, it was just a whisper, a dangerous thought I tried to push away. He stole from you. He humiliated you. He took everything. I told myself revenge was pointless. It wouldn't pay my bills, wouldn't fix my reputation, wouldn't give me back the months I'd lost. But then, I remembered his words. You're replaceable. No, I wasn't. I was unforgettable. And I was going to prove it. I spent the next few weeks living like a ghost, but this time it wasn't from despair. It was from planning. I devoured every scrap of information I could find about Victor Dynamics. Financial reports, internal leaks, legal filings, anything I could get my hands on. I built a wall of sticky notes, printed articles, and sketches on my bedroom wall until it looked like the mind map of a conspiracy theorist. I wasn't just looking for weaknesses in the company. I was looking for weaknesses in him. Victor King. The man who thought he was untouchable. The man who thought I was nothing. I learned about his habits, his investments, his patterns. I followed his interviews, traced his business moves, even visited the places he frequented. Every piece of information became a thread, and slowly I began weaving my web. I knew one thing for certain. If I wanted to take Victor down, I couldn't just beat him. I had to destroy him. Then, one night, as I was sitting in a late-night diner sketching out plans on a napkin, someone slid into the booth across from me. Still plotting his downfall, huh? I looked up sharply. It was Lena Hayes. Back at Victor Dynamics, she'd been one of the few people I trusted, a brilliant analyst who quit a year before I did, tired of Victor's exploitation. You look terrible, she said, sipping my coffee without asking. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I told her everything. About the interviews, the blacklist, the humiliation, the plan forming in my head. She listened quietly, her sharp green eyes never leaving mine. Then she leaned in and said 5 words that changed everything. I want in on this. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. That night, we made a pact. We weren't just going to build something better than Victor Dynamics, we were going to bury it. We were going to expose every lie, every theft, every crime hidden behind those glass walls. And when the world finally saw the real Victor King, he wouldn't be a titan anymore. He'd be dust. This was no longer about getting even. This was about taking everything back. But I knew something Lena didn't. This wouldn't just be a war of business. This would be a war of blood, betrayal, and survival. And Victor King had no idea what was coming. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But for me, it wasn't cold. It burned. It burned so hot it kept me alive when everything else tried to break me. I spent weeks planning, preparing, and reshaping myself. No more sleepless nights. No more begging for opportunities. No more Ryan Carter, the man Victor King destroyed. I was becoming someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone Victor would never see coming. Lena and I started small. A garage in the outskirts of the city, cheap desks, second-hand computers, and 2 borrowed cars. We called our company Nova Motors. Our plan wasn't just to compete with Victor Dynamics. It was to outsmart them. Victor believed in aggressive marketing, loud campaigns, flashy billboards, and exaggerated promises. I knew better. I knew the future was in emotion, in storytelling, in making people feel something when they saw a car. So we built our first campaign like a movie trailer, not an ad. We picked one car, the Hyundai Elantra N, sleek, aggressive, and built for speed. And we told a story around it. This isn't just a car. It's freedom. It's rebellion. It's you against the world. The ad exploded. Within 48 hours, it hit 2.3 million views on TikTok, trending across Instagram and YouTube Shorts. Car enthusiasts, influencers, and speed lovers started reposting it everywhere. For the first time in months, I felt alive. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was winning. 3 weeks later, I woke up to a message from Lena. He knows. She sent me a screenshot. Victor King standing at a podium during a press event, his smile tight, his words sharper than glass. Some people leave companies and think they can compete with the big leagues. But let me make it clear, Victor Dynamics is untouchable. He didn't mention my name. He didn't have to. The war had officially begun. I knew Victor's weakness, ego. He hated losing, especially to people he considered beneath him. So we planned a trap. Lena discovered Victor was about to launch a massive campaign for a luxury sedan, the Vanguard X1. It was supposed to dominate the mid-range sports market, and he was investing millions into the launch. I leaked a fake rumor on underground car forums. Nova Motors is working on a next-gen engine prototype, 30% faster, 20% more efficient. It was a lie. We didn't have a prototype. We barely had 2 cars to our name. But Victor believed it. Within a week, he redirected $5 million from the Vanguard launch into R&D, delaying his release by 3 months. And in those 3 months, we struck. We launched our second campaign. This time for the Kia Stinger GT, a beast of a machine, paired with cinematic visuals, drone shots, roaring engines, and an emotional voiceover. They told you speed had limits. They lied. Within days, the ad crossed 10 million views. Orders spiked. Dealerships started calling us, not Victor. The cracks in his empire had begun to show. But winning came at a price. The deeper I went, the more dangerous things became. One night, I came home to find my apartment door unlocked. Inside, nothing was stolen. But on my desk was a single note. Stop, or we'll stop you. I knew it was Victor's doing. He'd played dirty before, and he wasn't afraid to do it again. Lena wanted to call the police, but I couldn't. This wasn't about the law anymore. This was personal. One rainy evening, we sat in the garage, staring at the walls covered in plans, campaigns, and ideas. We're good, Ryan, Lena said. But good isn't enough. If we want to kill Victor's empire, we need something bigger. She was right. Ads weren't enough. We needed a spectacle. And then it hit me, the Velocity Showdown. An underground racing event where the fastest cars, boldest drivers, and most passionate fans came together. It wasn't just a race. It was where brands were made and destroyed overnight. If we could dominate that event, Nova Motors would become legendary. But what I didn't know then was that Victor already had a man on the inside. Someone watching me, feeding him everything we did. Our biggest move yet was about to become our biggest trap. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. The city smelled of gasoline, wet asphalt, and danger. Inside Nova Motors' tiny garage, the air was heavy, not with silence, but with anticipation. This wasn't just another campaign. This wasn't just another ad. This was war on wheels. The Velocity Showdown was 2 weeks away, the biggest underground racing event in the country. One night, 12 cars, millions watching online, and one winner who would dominate the entire automotive market for years. If Nova Motors won, we'd be untouchable. If we lost, we'd be forgotten. Lena and I worked day and night, pushing ourselves beyond exhaustion. We weren't just building a car, we were crafting a weapon. We called it the Phantom X, a heavily modified Hyundai Elantra N, stripped down, rebuilt, and tuned to perfection. Every nut, every bolt, every carbon fiber panel had a purpose. This wasn't about beauty anymore. This was about speed. But no matter how much we prepared, Victor was always 2 steps ahead. One night, while reviewing engine data, Lena slammed her laptop shut. Ryan, they know our build specs. I froze. We'd been compromised. Someone inside Nova Motors was feeding Victor everything. I confronted the team one by one, but no one confessed. Until Lena discovered an encrypted email on our assistant's laptop. A single message. Everything's ready. The Phantom X will fail. It was Chris, my assistant, the same guy I'd hired when Nova Motors started. I didn't fire him. Not yet. Instead, I used him. If Victor thought we were falling into his trap, I'd build one inside his. 3 days before the showdown, Victor launched a media storm around his car, the Vanguard X1 Hypersport. He called it the fastest street-legal sedan in America. It wasn't just an ad. It was a declaration of war. Billboards everywhere. Influencers talking. Teasers flooding social media. But we didn't respond. We stayed silent. Sometimes silence is louder than noise. The underground arena was like nothing I'd ever seen. A massive, abandoned airstrip, lit by hundreds of LED rigs, neon smoke, and roaring crowds. The smell of burnt rubber filled the air. Engines thundered like heartbeats. I sat inside the Phantom X, helmet on, hands gripping the wheel. Lena's voice came through the comms. "Remember, Ryan, it's not just speed, it's strategy. Stick to the plan." The countdown began. 10, 9, and then I saw him, Victor King, leaning casually against his Vanguard X1, wearing that same arrogant smile. He tilted his head, mouthing two silent words. "You lose." The race began with a deafening roar. 12 cars shot forward like missiles. Wind screamed past my helmet. Gears shifted. Tires burned. Everything was perfect until the third lap. Suddenly, my dashboard went dark. The Phantom XS ECU was failing. Victor had done it. His mole, Chris, had planted a remote kill switch. But what Victor didn't know was that I'd swapped the ECU yesterday. I smiled beneath the helmet. I'd been expecting this. Instead of dying, the Phantom X unleashed its boost mode, a hidden system Lena and I had built in secret. We shot forward, overtaking 3 cars in one move. Victor's face, visible on the giant drone screens, twisted in shock. By the last lap, it was just me and Victor. Phantom X versus Vanguard X1. 2 titans, 2 destinies, 1 finish line. Engines screamed. Crowds roared. Neon lights blurred into streaks of chaos. Victor tried to force me off the track, slamming his car against mine. Sparks exploded. Tires screeched. But I held the line. "Come on, Phantom. Don't fail me now," I whispered. Final turn. Final chance. I hit the NOS trigger. The Phantom X launched forward like a bullet. We crossed the finish line 0.2 seconds ahead of Victor. The arena erupted. Fans screamed. Cameras flashed. I ripped off my helmet, breathing hard, sweat pouring down my face. Lena ran toward me, tears in her eyes. "You did it, Ryan. We won." But before I could celebrate, I saw Victor walking toward me, his smile calm, too calm. He leaned close, whispering so only I could hear. "Enjoy your little victory. This was just the beginning." Later that night, as we celebrated in the garage, Lena checked her phone, her face drained of color. "Ryan, look at this." Victor had just announced something insane. Victor Dynamics has acquired Nova Motors. I froze. Somehow, without us knowing, Victor had bought out our investors. The war wasn't over. It had just evolved. The celebration after the Velocity showdown didn't last long. Victor's announcement had dropped like a bombshell. Victor Dynamics has acquired Nova Motors. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All those years of work, every late night, every drop of sweat, and with one move, Victor had stolen it all. But I wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Because Nova Motors wasn't just a company. It was family. The next morning, the Nova Motors garage felt like a battlefield after defeat. The team sat in silence, their faces pale and hopeless. Lena stood by the Phantom X, her hand on the hood as if touching a wounded soldier. I cleared my throat, breaking the silence. "Listen to me. Nova isn't gone. Not yet. Victor may have bought our name, but he can't buy our spirit." Lena glanced up, her voice trembling. "Ryan, we don't even own the cars anymore. We don't have funding. We're finished." I walked up to the Phantom X, running my fingers across the carbon fiber panels. "Lena, I didn't build this for money. I built this for passion. And as long as we have passion, we're not finished." The team looked up. That spark, it returned to their eyes. For the first time since the announcement, hope crept back into the room. 3 days later, Victor invited me to his private headquarters. A glass tower overlooking the city, shining like a monument to arrogance. He greeted me with his usual smug smile. "Ryan, I told you after the race. This was just the beginning." I clenched my fists. "You didn't beat us on the track, Victor. You bought us off it. That's not winning." He leaned back in his chair, sipping whiskey. Winning is control, Ryan. Control over speed, control over markets, control over the future. And I control everything now. I stared at him for a long moment before replying softly. No, Victor. You don't control people's hearts. And cars aren't just machines. They're dreams. Dreams can't be bought. I walked out without another word. Back at the garage, we held an emergency meeting. We had no funding, no official name, no rights to the Phantom X. But we had one thing Victor didn't. Innovation. Lena pitched the idea first. What if we go fully independent? We start from scratch. No investors. No board. Just us. Our skills and our vision. I nodded. And we make a car that doesn't compete. It redefines the game. The team came alive instantly. Sketching, planning, arguing, laughing. Felt like the early days again. Pure passion. No corporate nonsense. We called our reborn brand Eclipse Motors. The goal? To create a machine so powerful, so efficient, so revolutionary, that no amount of money or marketing could overshadow it. 3 months later, Eclipse Motors unveiled its prototype, the Eclipse One, an all-electric hypersedan with 0 emissions, but enough torque to outperform supercars. The launch went viral overnight. People called it the car of the future. Victor? He was furious. Within a week, he challenged us to one final event. The Apex Duel, a head-to-head showdown broadcast live between the Eclipse One and his Vanguard X2. This wasn't just about speed anymore. It was about philosophy, Victor's obsession with power versus our belief in innovation and ethics. The racetrack was silent. 2 cars. One destiny. I strapped into the Eclipse One. Its electric motor purred quietly, almost humble compared to Victor's roaring Vanguard. Lena's voice came through the comms. Ryan, remember? We're not here to destroy him. We're here to prove there's a better way. The lights went green. Victor exploded off the line, his Vanguard screaming like a beast unleashed. I stayed calm, letting the Eclipse One's AI-driven system calculate every curve, every braking point, every acceleration burst. Halfway through the track, Victor tried his old tricks, cutting me off, forcing me into tight corners, pushing me to overcommit. But the Eclipse wasn't just fast. It was intelligent. Its sensors predicted his moves before he made them. Its instant torque gave me an edge out of every turn. By the final lap, I was ahead not by force but by efficiency. And when we crossed the finish line, the world went silent for 2 seconds, then erupted in cheers. We'd done it. Eclipse Motors had won. Reporters flooded the track. Crowds screamed my name. Investors begged to sign with us. But I stepped up to the podium and said something no one expected. This isn't just about winning. The future of cars isn't speed at any cost. It's speed with responsibility. It's innovation without greed. Cars aren't toys for the rich, they're dreams for everyone. And dreams should never be sold to the highest bidder. Victor stood silently in the crowd, his expression unreadable. For the first time, he wasn't smiling. Months later, Eclipse Motors became a symbol of ethical innovation. We refused to sell out. We built cars that were sustainable, affordable, and powerful. Victor? He vanished from the headlines. Rumor had it he retired, investing quietly in clean energy, perhaps finally understanding the lesson. Lena and I stood one evening on the rooftop of our new facility, watching the sun set over the city. She smiled softly. Do you ever miss the chaos? I laughed. Every day. But this feels right. The camera pans out, showing a fleet of Eclipse One cars lined up under the fading golden light.